Welcome to this week's edition of Hutchinson Economic Development. My name is Miles Seppold. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city. And this week we're going to give you an update on the Jorgensen Hotel project. And then in our second segment, we're going to revisit TigerPath and talk more about our innovative program over at Hutchinson High School. So, Jorgensen Hotel project, our goals there, among many things. One, we just want to remove blight. That's one of the big goals behind the project. At the Hutchinson Economic Development Authority, it's always been one of our key priorities to work on downtown redevelopment and to maintain a strong downtown. And so rule number one of downtown redevelopment is to get rid of your blighted properties wherever possible. So that's goal number one. Second goal is just to redevelop this site and hopefully turn it into something positive for the downtown and then really strengthen the downtown. And so that's the goals behind doing this project. This is a project that we've been working on quite a long time. And now we're very close, hopefully, to bringing this to a successful conclusion. The project itself, everybody I think is pretty well familiar with the Jorgensen Hotel and the building next door to it. Two buildings there side by side that were built, gosh, over 100 years ago. There's a picture of the hotel and the Cook Jewelry building next door. And that's what we've been working on for quite a long time to bring this project to fruition. So here's a little bit of history. Originally the building there used to be a wooden building, a wooden hotel occupied that same site over 100 years ago, and it burned down to the ground. And the owner at that time was absolutely determined that that was not going to happen again. So when he built the new Jorgensen Hotel, the one that we have today, this thing was built with a lot of bricks and a lot of mortar and very thick walls. It's just a fortress. I mean, it's just really a very stout building. And because of that, very difficult to remodel because the walls are thick. It takes a lot to remodel something like that. Here's a picture of the Jorgensen in the 1920s, which was kind of its heyday when it was operating as a hotel, and then it had some commercial uses on the main level. And then by the 1960s, that's when the hotel had sort of started to fall into some level of disrepair. You know, the rooms are smaller, the hotel rooms are smaller, and the way that the thing was constructed was that you would have a hotel room, a bathroom next to it, and then another hotel room. And the two hotel rooms would actually share the bathroom. And in the 1920s, you know, that was perfectly fine. People were used to that. But by the 1960s, probably not quite as much. I think at that point, modern hotels, every room had its own bathroom. And so this idea of sharing bathrooms, that was sort of out. And for that reason and other reasons, the Jorgensen ceased to operate as a hotel, I think by the end of the 1960s. Then in the 1970s, I believe there were a couple of apartments in the upper levels, and then the main level continued to be used for different retail uses like drugstore and so forth like that. Now, you know, 2025, the building itself is actually in very poor condition. And as you can see in the pictures, a lot of it's been demolished on the inside. The old hotel rooms have been removed, the bathrooms have been removed. So the second and third floors of the building are basically big open spaces. And if you were to look at the building from above, you would see it's in the shape of a U, and there's a giant open air atrium between two wings of the building on the second floor and the third floor. And the reason they did this back in the day is they wanted natural light to go into every single hotel room. But because of the way it was built, you end up with these long spaces that are not very wide, and then as a result, very difficult to try and use in any contemporary fashion. So the building itself has got a number of real significant issues with it. The basement is in bad shape. Water coming into it from different sides of the building into the basement, so that's degrading. There's a 3-foot wall on the top of the building called the parapet, and that's collapsing. And then the roof itself is starting to look worse and worse every year. And so overall, the building's just in very, very poor condition. And it's really past any way to remodel it or restore it or maintain it. So we're just at a point where the building, it's over 100 years old. It just needs to be removed, quite frankly. So that leads us to our proposal. We have been working with a developer for some time now to put together a new concept. And here I want to just say it's not going to look like the picture on the screen. I just had to get a picture of a new building just to help people understand where it's going. The idea or the proposal that's been made is that this is going to be a 40-room boutique hotel. So it may not be affiliated with any particular chain, be kind of a standalone thing. It's going to be sort of a high-end hotel, $200 a night rooms. It'll be very nice. It'll be hands down the nicest hotel in McLeod County if it gets built. So the basic idea is that on the ground level, there's going to be some commercial spaces. Then there'll be 40 hotel rooms. And then on the top level, potentially, it's not a given, but what's been talked about is doing an event center space on the top that would have a lot of windows and have some spectacular views looking out over Hutchinson. If the project happens, it's going to have a huge economic impact for the community. The project is estimated to be over $12 million for the budget. And that's going to be spent in a lot of construction labor, a lot of local contractors, a lot of materials that get purchased locally. And then once the building is up, you know, it'll have ongoing purchases of supplies from right here in Hutchinson. They'll use a lot of energy and utilities from the city. So it's going to be a real economic driver for the community. And it'll give a pretty good boost to our tax base here in the community as well. So when you add up a commercial space and 40 hotel rooms and convention and event space, that's a lot of dining, that's a lot of entertainment, that's a lot of services, just overall a lot of activity that's going to be brought right in the downtown Hutchinson. We did ask the University of Minnesota Extension Service to do an economic impact study for us. So they kind of looked at the numbers. You know, on a $12 million project, that's going to translate to, you know, between 90 and 100 construction jobs. And that would make for maybe $6 million or so in wages and benefits that get paid. So that's very significant in a community our size. And then once the hotel is operating, it's expected to bring about $3.9 million a year of economic activity to our community, to McLeod County. So that's a pretty good boost. It's going to bring a lot of vitality to our downtown. Just as an example, we had the University of Minnesota look at the existing cobblestone hotel on the intersection of 7 and 15. And just to study, you know, nowadays you have the technology where you can track people by their cell phones and understand where people are coming from and where they're going to. And so they used the technology and they found out that before people check in to the Cobblestone Hotel, you know, 24% of them are going to go out and get something to eat first before they check in. And another 16% or so are going to go shopping before they check in. And another group, you know, 15% or so are going to go out and do some fun activity. This is before they even check into their room at the hotel. And then after they stay at the hotel and they check out, then again, people, another 21% are going to get something to eat before they leave town. 17% are going to go shopping before they leave town. And another 13% or so are going to go and do a fun activity before they leave Hutchinson. So you add all that up, and that's a pretty significant economic impact that comes just from one hotel. And we can look forward to something very similar happening if the Jorgensen gets redeveloped here in the near future. So here at this point, I guess I want to say that when it comes to redevelopment, it's hard. It's very difficult to redevelop existing buildings. For a developer, you know, it's way easier to go out to the edge of town and you find a green field or something and you can just build a new building. And it's easy and it's cheaper. But when it comes to developing in the middle of a downtown, That's a different situation altogether. And that's really the reason why the city's involved in this. We're providing some level of financial assistance to help make this project work. And the reason is that you just have more costs when you're redeveloping. When you're redeveloping, you have to buy one or two old buildings. And so that's an expense. And then you have to tear those old buildings down and remove them and get the site prepared. And all of that costs a lot of money. And you could find yourself spending $1 million just to get the site, and that's before you've laid the first brick, before you've done any building activity whatsoever. You may have spent $1 million just to get the site. If you went to the edge of town, it would be way, way less. Here in Hutchinson, we're trying to get downtown redevelopment to happen. That's why the Hutchinson Economic Development Authority is in this. The city is a partner in this. And that's why we're providing some financial resources, because we want to get rid of the old buildings and bring in new buildings that are going to have a good positive economic impact for the community. So that's our motivation in doing this. That's kind of where we're at right now with the Jorgensen Hotel redevelopment, and I'll have an update for you again next time. In our last segment, in the last episode, we talked about the why behind TigerPath. Why are we doing this? In this segment, we're going to start talking about the strategies that we're using to actually implement TigerPath. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. There's actually 6 strategies involved in this. And for today, I think I'm just going to talk about the first 3. And then in our next episode, we'll talk about the other strategies that we're using, and then we'll go on from there. So TigerPath, really it's 6 words. What it boils down to, it's discovering talent, it's developing skills, it's building careers. Our first strategy, and our most important strategy, in my opinion, is that we did some work to kind of realign high school education. When I was in high school, and I think the experience of a lot of people, is that, you're in high school and everybody's sort of on the same track, and it's all sort of aimed at the nearest university. And we wanted to try and get away from that. So one of our goals at Hutchinson High School with TigerPath is we want to help students find the best possible educational and career fit based on their own interests, based on their own aptitudes. What do they like to do, and what do they happen to be good at? What is their gifting? So we want to get away from one-size-fits-all education and really emphasize individualized education. Another goal is to make learning much more integrated, much more hands-on, much more experiential. When I was in high school, you spent the first 10 weeks reading the textbook, taking the quiz, doing the tests, and so forth. And then maybe if you had a week left over at the end, that's when you would actually get to do the fun stuff. You get to do the experiment. So one of the things that we're trying to do at Hutchinson High School is kind of switch that around so that we do the fun stuff on the front end, and we make classes much more hands-on and much more real world, because if we can help students understand why this stuff is important and get them doing the fun stuff, then they have enthusiasm and excitement for the material going for the whole rest of the semester. Another goal is to try to change the way that we think about education. We want to get away from the old question, most education is kind of like, how smart are you? And instead, that needs to be switched around so it becomes, how are you smart? Because every student is smart in some way. Everybody has a talent or a gifting, something that they're really good at. And so we just want to help students find out what that is. I think of my own dad. He never went past high school, but when it came to anything mechanical, he was an absolute genius. And he just had a natural gifting and an intuition on how things worked and how to fix things. I mean, it was just an amazing gift. And everybody has something like that. And we want to help students discover what's their gifting, what are they good at. And then another goal that we're trying to do is we want to flip around the college decision-making process. I think kind of the standard thing is you pick your college first, and then you go, and then you're there for a year or 2 or 3. and then you're trying out different ideas for a major. Hopefully you figure out your major. When you graduate, you hope that you can find the job that's halfway related to your major. And what we're trying to do with TigerPath is flip that all the way around. We want to start off by getting students thinking about, okay, what do I want to be, right? What's the career that I want to do? And then that will help them understand what is the education that they need to get to be able to get to that job. And then once you have your educational path figured out, that will in turn inform what school you should be going to. So the outcome of all these things then is we implemented the TigerPath Academies. At Hutchinson, we have Sci-Hi Academy, which is sciences with an emphasis on medical careers. We have the STREAM Academy, which is the traditional STEM. STEM is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But with STREAM, we're adding R for renewable, we're adding A for art and design, and we're adding more to the M, so it's not just mathematics, but also manufacturing. Then we have Business Academy, and then we have Human Services Academy. So for people that want to become a teacher or social worker or work in government or whatever it is, they would be Human Services Academy. So from all this, I mean, one of the biggest changes that we made at Hutchinson High School is that we made electives available right away in the 9th grade. When I was in high school, I didn't see an elective class until I was a junior or a senior. And it makes it awfully difficult to explore different career options when you can't really take the class related to that. So in Hutchinson High School, they make electives available right away in the 9th grade. So even just as a freshman in high school, you could take Welding 1 or wood shop or auto mechanics or computer-aided drafting and design, whatever it is. And you can start exploring different things right away. None of the state-mandated required classes goes away. They're all still in there. Students are still responsible to get those classes done in the course of their high school career. It's just that we're giving students the flexibility that they can explore and test out different classes starting right away in 9th grade. And then if they find something they love, they get to keep exploring that. If they love welding, for example, they could take welding all 4 years through high school, right? We want to get students thinking about this early on. What do they want to be? And then that will guide them the rest of the way. So that's been a big win for us at Hutchinson. The number of students that are taking career and technical education classes, which is welding and shop and building trades and all that type of thing, that number has doubled over the last number of years. So back in 2015, we had 377 kids taking CTE classes. Nowadays, it's over 850, and all of those classes are just packed, and they're very popular. Every class is full right to the top. And so that's exactly what we had hoped would happen, because students are exploring different career options. That's exactly what we want. That's what individualized education is about, is that the student is empowered to pursue the things that they're interested in and that they like to do. The second strategy that we have with TigerPath is just to build educational pathways to college. And this is where we're partnering with Ridgewater College and other colleges to build seamless pathways so that students can earn college credit while they're in high school and industry-recognized credentials even before they graduate. So the vision is that high school students will graduate with a diploma in one hand, college credits, maybe a dozen college credits in the other hand that they earn for free, and then hopefully an industry-recognized certification, which is the type of thing that employers love to see. Over at Hutchinson High School, for example, students can participate in, they can get what are called articulated college credits, and that's where they can earn credit. They earn college credit for the work that they're doing in their high school classes. Another thing that we're doing is we're implementing different industry-recognized credentials that students can earn while in high school. And perhaps the best example of this would be the Certified Nurse Assistant program. They can get a CNA certification, and it's free for the students. They take the classes, they have to do clinicals, they have to take an exam at the end, but if they pass, if everything goes well, they are actually certified as a CNA. They could go out and get a CNA job right there. And there's a huge demand for CNAs in Hutchinson and really everywhere. And it's an opportunity for students, if they're thinking about going into the medical field, a great way for them to get practical experience and then also have a job that they can pay their way as they're going on to become a nurse or a doctor or a dentist or whatever it is. So we have a number of these credentials that we offer at Hutchinson High School. We're trying to add on to this all the time. It's kind of an ongoing process. The third strategy with TigerPath is about changing stereotypes, and this is a very big one. Our goal with this one is just to change outdated stereotypes about manufacturing, about education and careers, and about gender in the workforce. With manufacturing in particular, there's still a stereotype out there that it's dirty, that it doesn't pay, and all these jobs are going to China. And the reality is that none of these things are true. Manufacturing in 2025, this is very high-tech, very clean environments. It's not what one would normally think of. So one, it's very high-tech. You got to be really smart to be in manufacturing these days. I mean, it's technical type work, and then very good paying technical work. And then if anything, jobs are coming back from overseas to America because we're finding out that if you want to maintain quality, if you want productivity, really we're best equipped to do this here in America better than anywhere else in the world. So there's actually what's called reshoring of bringing these jobs back to America. So manufacturing is really a great career choice. There's ongoing stereotypes about careers and which are more appropriate for gals, which are more appropriate for the guys, and really it has no basis in reality. Going back to World War II, millions of women worked in manufacturing and they did a fantastic job, and they can totally do this work in 2025. And it just so happens that these careers are very high-paying careers. So we're being very intentional about trying to change stereotypes about what gender is appropriate for which job. If you can do the job, anybody should be able to do it, regardless of their gender. It just comes down to, can you do the work? And over again, the answer is yes. And we're trying to get more young gals to go into manufacturing and the trades because there's thousands of job openings and these are great paying careers. The third stereotype we're trying to get rid of is just to get rid of the idea that a 2-year education is somehow lower than a 4-year education. You look at bankers and attorneys and those are just kind of viewed as higher somehow than auto mechanics or electricians or plumbers. And the reality is that these technical jobs are foundational to our civilization, right? We all like indoor plumbing. We all like to have electric light. We all like to have cars that work every time we start them up. We need technical people to do this work. So what we're trying to promote, the idea is that these jobs are equally valuable, maybe even more valuable than, you know, being a banker or an attorney or whatever. We need these technical people as part of our civilization. So we're just trying to bring all this on level with each other because that's the reality of it. So how are we doing that? One of the things that we're trying to do is help people better understand what manufacturing looks like in 2025 with industry tours, internships, job shadowing opportunities, all kinds of things. We want to get students and even more so teachers and mom and dad to be touring these factories here in town so that they can see for themselves what these jobs look like in the 21st century and what great opportunities that they represent. Another thing that we're doing is we created the Center for Technical Excellence over at Hutchinson High School. I'm going to talk more about that probably in our next episode, but it's just another thing to help people understand what does manufacturing look like in 2025. Other things that we're doing, we have an Academy Path fair where employers will come into the high school, they'll set up a booth, and then students can talk to them and learn about, okay, what's it like to work at where you're manufacturing, or what's it like to work at Zephyr Wind Services, or whatever it is. Really just to get employers connected to students and vice versa. And then another thing that we're doing in partnership with Ridgewater College is the Ignite Job Fair every October. So this is sort of a next generation job fair. It's sort of a hands-on job fair where every booth that has some sort of a hands-on activity that students will come up. They actually have to do something with their hands. Other outcomes that we've had in this area to help change stereotypes, we've developed the TigerPath Parents Guide. And this goes out to every mom and dad with an 8th grader, and then we'll get more of these out in the community so that people can just pick these up and learn about what we're doing. It's really kind of aimed at mom and dad, and it's got information about TigerPath. It's got information about planning for education beyond high school, how to save money on college, and then it talks about the different jobs that are out there and available, and I'll come back to that in a bit. We've developed the TigerPath website online, so you can go to hutchtigerpath.com, and there's some really good videos there to help people understand why we're doing TigerPath, and a lot of information about the 4 career academies, and then information about all the different jobs. So by career academy, you can look at potential career opportunities. So we have web pages, and it's in the Parents Guide too, where you can look in the Stream Academy and see a bunch of jobs, a couple dozen jobs that are associated with that, how many job openings there are in Minnesota over the upcoming years, and what these jobs pay. Because I think people would be amazed if they knew how much people get paid in a number of these professions. I mean, a lot of really good high-paying jobs out there and available today. So, and then another outcome is just this last year now, the Hutchinson Economic Development Authority, we hired a gal in high school junior, to be our Women in the Workforce intern. And our goal there is we just want to build more female leaders. I think in Minnesota, only 30% of the leadership positions are occupied by females. And we can do better. And we want to do better. So part of it is we want to help build up the gals to be leaders and help them grow into these leadership positions because they have a lot to offer. So that was part of the internship, is that the intern would learn about leadership. She would go out and interview leaders, ask them for career advice. How did you come into your job and so forth? So that hopefully she can follow in their footsteps. And then another part of her internship was to recruit her friends and be encouraging her friends to be taking career and technical education classes and recruit them to take these classes. So this past year we had a gal that was very successful in this area, and she did a fantastic job because she recruited a whole bunch of young ladies to be taking our welding classes over at Hutchinson High School. And I can say today, without hesitation, that Hutchinson High School has more girls taking career and technical education classes than any other high school in Minnesota. We've just been very successful in this, and we're going to keep building on this program. So the intern learned a lot about leadership, and one of her quotes, she said, leadership is really about everyone that you're working with. And so she totally got it. That's what leadership is about. It's about the team. It's about helping the team succeed. And now we're on to the second intern. We've hired a new intern here just a few weeks ago, and we're excited to see what she's going to be doing over this upcoming school year. So that's pretty much all I have for this segment. Next time we're going to talk about some more strategies that we're using to implement TigerPath over at Hutchinson High School. And then I'm going to have an update on the Jorgensen Hotel project, and then other things that we're doing to promote the downtown. So that's it for Hutchinson Economic Developments. We'll see you next time.